Hello everybody, happy Archaeology Wednesday, week 3. This week is going to be super fun. We're going to head out to the dig site. We have really nice weather today, and we're going to take a look at the excavation itself. You guys are going to excavate with me a little bit. We're going to pull some artifacts out, talk about them, and then next week I want to give you guys a heads up. We are going to do a Q&A day. So what that means is you guys go ahead and comment questions below about archaeology, archaeologists, or even the history of Spring Hill House, an Underground Railroad site. So go ahead and comment down below, and let's go ahead and head out to the site. We're going to get ready, go out there, and start some excavations today. Hello, hello. It is a sunny day today, and it is time to open the site. So I already went ahead and pulled one tarp off. We've got one left to pull, and then we can go ahead and take a look and see what's going on over here. So let's go. Immediately upon stepping into the unit here, I see this pile of dirt that I've yet to screen, and then in this layer peeking out, looks like from the damage, we had a little piece of a tumbler. This is the rim of a tumbler glass. Looks a little warped, but like a drinking juice glass kind of looking glass there, but this fell into the unit, so we don't know which context this is from. So that's kind of an issue. Also, you can see artifacts peeking out of the next unit wall. Do you see here? Any guesses as to what that is? It is actually a piece of yellowware, which is the type of pottery that was almost like your Tupperware bowls back in the late 1800s, super early 1900s. And then we also have a family of spiders that moved in over here. Looks like some type of animal started to burrow a little bit in that wall. But we got to clean all of this stuff that came through the tarps up. Luckily, the damage is not too bad. The walls are still somewhat intact here, but lots of work to be done to fix this up. And you can also see right here a giant animal bone sticking out, probably horse or cow, and a piece of ceramic right here sticking out right there. How cool is that? We got some artifacts peeking out of the next unit. I'm not going to disturb those because that is not in the same location as this, so it'll be a different context. I don't want to take things out of context because that is very important. This is some of the items that we use daily. Of course, bug spray and sunscreen are very important in this case. We also have our trowel. This is for excavations. It's a bricklayer's trowel, Marshalltown. This is an archaeologist's best friend. Every archaeologist has at least 1 or 2 trowels. You've got some brushes for brushing off artifacts that might be a little delicate. Kneeling pad, which is super important because my knees are already starting to feel bad since I hadn't really used that much in the past. We've got our paperwork, which is also super duper important. We've got one for each layer describing tons of information. This is actually scientific. Archaeology is a science, so it's all about recording. The first archaeologist, technically, the scientific archaeologist was technically Thomas Jefferson. So that's pretty interesting. Here we've got our first artifact bag of the day. Nothing in there yet since I haven't started screening. It's got the context on it, the initials of the excavator, and the date. And then we also have a screen for sifting, and you can hear the train coming from that direction here. This is our little sifting screen. We're kind of just starting out here with supplies, so eventually we're going to have a large standing screen made for the site, so that'll be really exciting and good for my back. Okay, let's sit here and do a little fireside chat. I'm sorry if the lighting isn't the best, but I wanted to talk about how archaeology is done. So first step is we pick a location. Every archaeologist will choose the best size unit to start. A unit is the square that you're excavating. It could be a 1x1, it could be a 5x5, it could be a 10x10. It just kind of depends on the site. You're gonna mark out where it's located. Coordinates are always the best for this in case an archaeologist in the future wants to come back, take a look at it again. At the area, you can always know where to find it, and you know where everything came from exactly. So once you start that, you're gonna start your layer. If you think about it here, this will be my little doodle pad. Our ground is kind of like a layered cake. So we've got a chocolate layer, maybe vanilla, maybe strawberry. Each layer of dirt was deposited at a different time. So if you think about a layered cake, which layer goes in first? The bottom one, that one here. So that is gonna be our oldest layer. So as it makes sense, the deeper down you go, the older the deposit is. So that'll help us date the artifacts, and the artifacts will help us date the layer. Interestingly enough, artifacts are very important to archaeology, obviously, because they help to tell the story about what was happening here at this site at that precise time in history. So right now we've gone, I would like to say 4 or 5 layers down. Each layer is different in color, what's in it. Sometimes it has different inclusions, like sometimes a layer will have a lot of brick, sometimes a layer will have a lot of charcoal, and so on and so forth. So an archaeologist always keeps a close eye on that dirt because it can actually tell you a story. So right now we are in layer F, so that is way down here. Each layer gets a new letter, and then if there's any differential spots in that layer, it'll get a decimal. So right now we're in F.02 because the southern point of this had a different color than the northern half, so it looked to be a different deposit. So we went ahead and took one layer out, and turns out that layer in the north side actually came down into the layer that was in the south side, and it was one big layer across the entire unit. So right now, that is our layer that we're digging. Let's take a look at some artifacts and see if it can tell us a little bit about the site as it was in the late 1800s. Come on, let's go. We are digging here. Here's our current layer that we're digging through. You can see large pieces of charcoal, fairly dark soil. It's kind of sandy. There's lots of artifacts in here. I mean, I bet you just grabbing a handful of dirt out of this bucket will show you something cool. There's something there. All of this dirt, which is scooped into here, is going to then be screened for artifacts. But you can see that next layer popping out. See how different this is from this? That is such a different color there. It's more clayey. It's got less artifacts in it, less charcoal. So that tells me, there we go, next context is coming up. Leave that layer alone and let's take this down to there. Here's a screen that I'm going through, and what do you notice in here? We've got tons of things. Here's an animal bone fragment. What else do I see in here? I know I saw something very exciting, and it is right here. This is part of a tobacco pipe, and it's the part of the heel almost and the bowl. So your pipe stem would have come out right where my thumb is, and it would have been quite long. And then the bowl, where I'm holding right now, would have been where you put the tobacco in. It's got a very beautiful impressed design on it here. If you look at that, that's super exciting. You can see all the charcoal and the coal in here, tons of that. And just digging through, there's probably going to be some more really cool artifacts in here. Just looking at it. But that is super exciting. This is a colon ball clay made pipe made in Europe. It's white. So it was brought over from Europe sometime in the 1800s. How cool is that? Seeing something poking out here, and I know it's gonna be good. So I was just pushing the dirt past me. I kind of like to screen pulling the dirt towards me so that I know what I've gone through and what I have not gone through. And a lot of things in here look like objects that are not artifacts, they're just natural. However, if you see something right here, let's take a look at it. So this side's pretty interesting. Let's flip it over. Are you a button? What are you? Oh my gosh. Look at this. That is amazing. That's a really exciting find, guys. I have no idea. We'll have to take it inside, get it cleaned up to get a better look. It is so gorgeous. That pattern, I'm not sure what that is yet, but we can investigate a little bit later. All right, so let's go over a couple artifacts that we found at the site. This here is a picture of a glass tumbler fragment, part of the rim. So that would have been almost like a juice glass or a drinking cup. They were very popular in the 19th centuries for things like alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks. Non-alcoholic more popular for these glasses in the later 19th century. This here is a design that was kind of popular in the later half of the 19th century. It's sort of a honeycomb design. There are other designs that we have found here at the site, such as a thumbprint, a fluted design, and these were introduced in the 1830s, and by the 1870s, a couple different companies were producing them. So we don't know which exact company produced this one, but we do know it most likely dates to the mid to late 19th century. Here we have a picture of an example of a drinking glass tumbler. This was found on the I-95 project, so they were putting in or expanding road I-95, and they found a lot of archaeological sites along the way. So this was dug from a 19th century site along I-95. So that's just an example of what one of the glasses that we found could look like when it's put together, which would be very cool to see. So stay tuned when we start mending pieces. You might be able to see the full drinking glass eventually. So next up, we have our fragment of a tobacco pipe bowl. This is most likely a fluted design. It has a heel. I'll show you in a second here what the full tobacco pipe may have looked like. This is a reproduction of a 19th century tobacco pipe. They were made starting kind of in the 16th century because Virginia started producing tobacco and exporting it over to England. So they started to make tobacco pipes over in England with kaolin clay, which is this white clay, and they started exporting it over to the Americas at that time. They were kind of popular until I'd say maybe about the 1700s when they started to go into decline. But by the Industrial Revolution, around the mid-19th century, they started to get really popular again. And then later on in the beginning of the 20th century, they kind of became unpopular because cigarettes became a thing, and those were more preferred. So the one shown here is most likely late 19th century, mid to late, and probably made over in England somewhere. So that is a really awesome find that I did not really expect to find on this site, but is very exciting. And the pipes were used, of course, for smoking tobacco, but fun fact, children used to actually smoke tobacco too way back then, and they also used to fill the pipes with bubbles and dip them upside down in bubbles, and then they would blow bubbles from the pipes. So who knows, could have been a children's toy as well. So here's our cool button. It's a nice black button. This is actually a jet button. So during the Victorian era, the Queen and all of the court officials started to wear black after the loss of Prince Albert, and they would wear black jet buttons. So that became a fashion. Now, a lot of people couldn't afford jet because it's actually a fossilized stone that is still pretty expensive to this day. So they started to make other alternatives of glass that were a lot cheaper for the middle class and lower class people to afford. So this could have been worn as part of a mourning garment. And any number of people that lived here at Spring Hill could have owned and worn that, including Lydia Teller, who outlived pretty much all her children, and I think her mother and father, or more likely it could have been Eliza because of Arvine Chaffee. He passed away in 1882, or even Helen, who would have been in mourning for her father. Now, interestingly enough, this button is not glass, the cheaper alternative. It is jet, the more expensive upper class alternative here. And the reason that I know that is because glass would be cold to the touch, it would clink on your teeth, and it would be a little bit heavier. However, this button is warm to the touch. It doesn't really make that clinking sound, and it is very, very light, like almost like a piece of coal, which basically jet is pretty much fossilized coal, so that would make a lot of sense. So that is a very cool find. Thank you so much for watching and digging with us today. Please don't forget to leave comments or questions down below for next week's Q&A video. And I'd say today at the site, just digging for about 3 hours, we found probably close to anywhere from 50 to 100 artifacts. That is a lot of lab time, guys, and a lot of washing. So we found tons of stuff. Maybe in a later video, we can go through the typical artifacts that we are finding on the site from this historic dump site, or as archaeologists like to call it, a midden. So anyway, stay tuned. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Bye-bye.